today's video I'm going to review the Norland axe by Arms and Armour. This particular axe has been modified quite a bit from its original state, but I will give you a closer look and talk more about that later. So I guess I'll start with dimensions. The overall length is 21 inches from the top of the haft to the bottom of the haft. The blade is roughly 4 inches long, and it would be slightly larger at the point where it's actually sharp. Now, from the pole to the top corner, it's about 6 inches. Now, this head does come sharp, which means that the steel here is actually tempered to hold an edge, which means it will actually resist chipping a lot easier than something that was designed just for being just an axe-shaped object. This is actually designed to be a functional axe, so the tempering in it is actually pretty good, and I believe the steel is quite good. Even though it's not listed what type of steel, it's still a fairly high carbon steel that can hold an edge. And it's a quality steel that you'd expect from a company like Arms and Armour. The head itself is actually a Peterson Type C. A very, very nice historic bearded axe pattern. One of the problems with this for the absolute beginner is that because the axe comes sharp, it is quite a lot of work to rebate the edge. It can be done with just a file. It's better done with a grinder. And the whole axe head is covered in black paint. That has to be removed before it can really be used, because obviously black paint on metal is more of a recent occurrence than the Viking Age. But because it's bottom hafted, it's fairly easy to take the head off, so you can actually just use a wire wheel on a grinder without worrying about damaging the haft. If you don't have access to that, you can use a hand wire brush and steel wool, but that does take a lot of elbow grease. If an axe file will take care of the edge fairly well. A grinder's better, like I said. This axe weighs about 2 pounds. It's pretty light, and because it's bottom hafted, it's a lot safer than something that's top wedge hafted, because in order for this to fly off the handle, this nub would either have to be completely gone or shrink a phenomenal amount before this will actually slide all the way off. That's the good thing about having, more than half an inch sticking out above. Excuse me, it does take a lot to shrink that up to be able to slide right off. And you don't have to worry about a wedge slipping, because one of the worst things that can happen at an event is to have a part of your kit fly off, whether it's a broken sword blade or anything like that, and either hit a combatant who's not expecting a missile to be flung at them, or to fly off into the audience and hit someone, especially if it hits a child. So bottom hafted axes are by far safer. The haft on this is actually made of hickory. So it's anyone who knows axe handles and hammer handles knows that hickory is one of the best woods around for it, and it's sort of the traditional axe haft of North America. This particular axe is about a year old, so it's taken quite a few fairly heavy hits over that amount of time, and it only has a few minor little dings. It's really stood up well. It actually feels very nice in the hand. It's a little small for my hands, but I have pretty big hands, so anyone with a slightly smaller hand than mine, it's perfect. You can also slide your hand all the way to the bottom. It's still fairly maneuverable and everything, and it's right on this little almost a colt's foot kind of, or fawn's foot kind of swell at the bottom. Personally, I'd like that to be a little bit larger, but I know it has to be fairly petite like that because it's got to go through the eye of the head. This leather on it was added after, and this modification is specifically for the purpose of making sure that the head of the axe doesn't come sliding down with any force onto the hand of the person wielding the axe, as well as it acts as a guard when doing an overhead parry. So any blade that comes in will come in at an angle like this, and it won't do too much damage to the haft. This is just sort of a sacrificial piece. It's laced on so that it can be removed if the head needs to be removed for maintenance. So to remove a head on an axe like this, you basically just tap the butt end of the haft on a hard surface until the handle or the head loosens and slides down a little bit. From there, you just slide the haft out, do the maintenance you need to do on the head, or if you're rehafting, you just slide this piece out and slide the new one in, and then you just slide it in, and give it a good sharp tap on the butt end here, above the head. A couple good taps, let it seat on the swell, and it's good to go. And if the pole or if the haft ever shrinks, all you have to do is give a few taps and it seats it again, which I think is a lot better than when it's wedged. So my thoughts on this axe. For me, the price tag of $75 is a little bit on the pricey side, but that could just be a matter of me just looking for a deal, as well as I'm a blacksmith, so I know how to make axes. It's just a matter of finding the time to make them for my own kit. To be used for a combat axe, it does need a bit of modification. You have to do quite a bit to rebate the edge and make sure all of the corners are rounded enough that they won't hurt anyone. But for the fact that this axe has a fair amount of performance to it, that amount of work is totally worth it. It's based on a historic design. It has the safety of being bottom hafted. It has a lot going for it, and even the profile is fairly thin. It's only slightly heavier than this Hanway throwing axe, because the profile is so similar. It actually has a little bit more meat in the eye, and the Hanway actually has more meat through the blade, but this one obviously has a lot more meat to it, both in length and along the beard. I do think this axe will, as a combat axe, will far outperform this one, just based on the hooking ability and everything, and the fact that it comes on a proper haft that you don't have to do anything to really make it usable. The only thing that I very much dislike about this axe is that it comes painted black. To me, that's one of the worst things that you can do to a piece of metal. At least they, damaging the metal or anything, but painting it black is horrible, because there are so many different options for making metal go different colors. If you wanted to do more of a weathered patina, you could almost do something similar to this, where they applied that sort of oxidation color to it. If you wanted to go black, you could either go with there are a number of chemical patinas, but they could also carburize it, which essentially is applying wax or oil to the metal and then burning that off, leaving the carbon imprinted on the metal. That also protects it quite a bit. And then you can apply a coating of oil over top of that to ship it. But painting metal, yeah, it's cheap, yeah, it's easy. It doesn't look right. You end up with brush strokes and all that stuff, and eventually the paint chips off, or the paint wears if you're using If you were to use this axe for chopping wood or anything, you'd end up with a wear pattern along here where, you know, it gets stuck in the wood, and then you end up with paint worn off and all that stuff. And bare metal meets paint, and it just looks ugly. There are better ways to blacken things. And, you know, it's just a shame that a lot of companies don't do that, because paint is cheap. They can just, you know, have this go down a conveyor belt and spray it with paint, or have a robot spray it with paint, and it's done. So yeah, that's about it. I think the only thing that sort of detracts from it, value-wise, is the paint. Otherwise, it's a pretty solid axe for both use as a camp axe, as well as use as a combat axe with some basic modifications. So, if you like this video, don't hesitate to like and subscribe. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. If you have any comments, just leave them below. I will post the links to the Arms and Armour website, as well as the listing for this product on Cult of Athena. Hopefully I am able to do some more tutorials. Thinking of maybe another cooking one in the near future, as well as getting some combat footage, as well as reviewing a few more products. So, see you next time.